Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. With the transfer portal largely winding down, you're starting to get a more clear picture on what these programs look like heading into spring practice, fall camp, in the 2024 season. And though it's about time we start taking some deep dives into position groups, we're going to start with the LSU offensive line. This is a unit that, going back and watching some film, looking at the numbers, was one of the better units that we had in 2023. Might be the best offensive line we have heading into the 2024 year. Cannot tell you how impressed I was with this unit. Want to get into some things that we noticed on film that they do really well. Maybe some questions that we have as well. And Dill, next Friday, we get into the LSU defensive line. Conversation that probably will have to go longer as we have a little bit more questions. But this offensive line, really excited to take a deep dive into it. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. And there has been just an overwhelming amount of support from the LSU fans, whether we're talking transfer portal, whether we're talking the high school recruiting trail or the coaching changes that we've seen. It's been a blast talking about this program. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown. And for this, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section and stuff you notice, players that we might be sleeping on. And without further ado, Dale, I'm going to give you the T-box here, this LSU offensive line heading into 2024. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, like, you kind of give these other guys credit, Jay and Daniels, all those wideouts. They get a lot of credit for, like, the resurgence, or not resurgence, but, like, just the level of play that they played on offense at LSU. But honestly, the LSU offensive line probably deserves to very much be right in the center of that conversation in terms of how much better they got from 22 to 23. And I just think that offensive line gave them a way to play so much more freely and open, because you didn't need to leave tight ends in ever. You didn't need to leave running backs in. You could play with 4 wide receivers and still run the ball really physically on teams. I just thought the way this offensive line played allowed that offense to play with flexibility and in a way that put a lot of pressure on teams. And I don't think enough people give them credit because of how good some of the other guys
were. And you see so many offenses have to scheme around pass protection, right? Like leaving a tight end to chip it or leaving a running back into pass pro. LSU never had to do that. Like, they could just rely on those 5 guys up front to give Jaden Daniels protection, and they absolutely did it. And it starts really with the offensive tackle play. And you have 2 guys that, if they were old enough, would be going to the NFL draft, and Will Campbell and Emory Jones. 2 guys that phenomenal athletes, very good feet, technically sound. You take a look at them in pass protection this year. I mean, 491 pass pro opportunities for Will Campbell, only 17 pressures. Emory Jones, 416 pass pro opportunities, only 18 pressures. And like, going back and watching them against some elite edge rushers, Dallas Turner from Alabama, Darius Robinson from Missouri, they held their own in meaningful ways in pass pro. And when it's time to get downhill and road grade a little bit, I mean, they certainly can do that too.
And you just look across, I mean, everyone was good. I thought the emergence of Garrett Dellinger, I mean, I thought, again, like the year before, he played a little bit here and there and was kind of shuffling spots. But when he really locked that left guard position down, played excellent, really powerful, able to move guys. And I think what gets kind of lost with the individual talent is how good this offensive line played as a unit. I mean, you kind of look across the country at teams with really good talent. I mean, Alabama, Miami, perhaps, teams that had probably multiple NFL players on those units. And then you watch like Alabama against Michigan, where they couldn't pick up blitzes, or you watch them against Texas, really struggle at times to run the ball and be physical as a group. Again, you kind of look, I mean, Caden Proctor, Tyler Booker, those guys, and J.C. Latham, individually awesome players, but they didn't always play as good of a unit. I mean, LSU just, they didn't miss assignments. They didn't miss stunts. Just as good as the talent was individually, the unit might have even been better.
100%. Like, and that's a really good point, because we always talk about like evaluating the individual offensive linemen up front. And you don't talk enough about how does this group look as a whole. You see, when we're doing these deep dives, you see offensive lines routinely have pass protection breakdowns, right? Not picking up blitzes, not dealing with stunts. This group just seamlessly gives off stunts. I was always on the right page in terms of who's picking up who, not giving free runners to Jaden Daniels. That's a really good point. As talented as this group is, they play together extremely well too, I should say. And Dill, I think another thing that I noticed, and doing a lot of these deep dives on individual offensive lines, it kind of becomes apparent that there are not a lot of offensive lines that are extremely versatile in terms of what they can do. Like, you have some offensive lines that are really good in kind of those power concepts, road grading a little bit, reestablishing the line of scrimmage. But when you want to run some of those stretch zone concepts, they're just not athletic enough to make those reach blocks. There is no running concept that is off limits for this LSU team. You want to get downhill, run power concepts. That's probably where they excel the most. But if you want to stretch it and run some off tackle, some stretch zone stuff, and ask these offensive linemen to be athletes in space, they can do that too. And again, it goes back to this offensive line just allowing this offense to be so multiple and so, I guess, dynamic in terms of how they want to run the football and what they want to do on offense. The versatility that they have, extremely impressive as well.
And it'll be exciting to see how they kind of run or block for a new running back in Caleb Jackson, who I think probably by the end of the year, you kind of started to say, like, this guy's probably their guy. I mean, a far more versatile runner than I think Logan Diggs. And Logan Diggs was great. I mean, when they ran him inside, really tough, really physical, but he just didn't have that, like, that explosiveness that I think Caleb Jackson has. I think this run game even might get a little more dynamic, at least with the running back. Obviously, you lose Jaden Daniels. He's a huge part of that running game. But just that pure running back play, I think it'll be interesting to see how they use Caleb Jackson, because I think it does open up more of their run playbook. I think they can use him on tosses and getting outside and doing some other things that maybe they didn't want to do with Logan Diggs as much, because he was more, again, he was good at what he was good at, but I don't think you would have wanted to see him in space a ton.
100% agree. And I guess the one question that you have with this offensive line is then looking at the inside, right? We highlighted these tackles are dudes, like certified dudes. You saw them go up against elite pass rushers pretty much all season long, did a very good job. Then you look on the inside, Miles Frazier, I mean, 400 plus pass per opportunities, gave up 6 pressures all year. Garrett Dellinger, as a Michigan target, wish we could have had him in Ann Arbor. And you're seeing what's most exciting is you're seeing him put it together, like making that jump from 2022 to 2023. We knew him coming out of high school had that kind of juice. What I'm most excited for is all of these guys are relatively young outside of Miles Frazier, who's coming back. I think this is going to be a 6 year. I'm not positive. And you look at the step that they could maybe even take in 2024 on the inside with Miles Frazier.
Right. They took monster steps in 2022 from 2022 to 2023. When that first game against Florida State, you were like, holy moly, this LSU offensive line's bad. Then by the end, you were like, ooh, Will Campbell and Emory Jones are really starting to play some ball. And then by 2023, you just never saw bad games. I mean, they were consistent. They were monsters. They could run the ball. They could throw the ball. It was just,
and again, against really quality edge rushers. I mean, like Dallas Turner and Braswell and Darius Robinson from Missouri, like really good edge rushers. They're really holding their own. The one question you do have is at the center position. And it sounds like it's going to be DJ Chester, who's a true freshman last year, coming in to replace Charles Turner. And another Michigan target that's going to LSU. Bryce log him in with the rest of them. LSU just taking all the Michigan talent. But DJ Chester, an absolute dude as well. From all like what you hear out of camp is like this is a guy that's going to kind of seamlessly make that transition. And you said it best. Like, how beneficial for a young center in DJ Chester to come in the middle of an offensive line that is as rock solid as this one. Like, it's seemingly going to be a seamless transition for DJ Chester, which makes you have the last like question that you have about this LSU offensive line. And it's a question that you don't really know the answer to, but it's like, what does this depth look like? And obviously a guy like Lance Hurd transferring out kind of highlights that question a little bit more. Dill, I think Brian Kelly might have gone a long way in answering this, right? Because if Brian Kelly knows what he has in the 2 and 3 deep, he knows the young guys who are backing up. We don't totally, because they stayed relatively healthy all year. Him not going out into the transfer portal and grabbing any offensive lineman probably tells you how a guy like Brian Kelly sees this depth of this LSU offensive line.
And because Brian Kelly's not like so far been shy to do it when he thinks his unit isn't good enough. The secondary, both years, he obviously did it. This year, especially, or to an extent as well. And then at wide receiver, wanted more experience, goes out, gets 2 guys. I mean, he's not afraid to do it. It's not like, I mean, if Dabo didn't go get offensive linemen, it wouldn't tell you anything because you just know it doesn't use the portal. But Brian Kelly used the portal. LSU is a top destination for anyone in the country. If they wanted to go get 2 or 3 offensive linemen to fix their depth issue, they would have easily been able to do it. And the fact that they didn't, probably, it's kind of what you said. It makes you think that they know what they have and these guys can play.
And it doesn't even sound like they missed on any. Like, as someone who is like obsessively following the transfer portal and visits I don't remember a single potential target for LSU on the offensive line even visit Baton Rouge on a visit. So I think it tells you we didn't even go after any offensive line. You feel pretty good, Dill. Next week, we got the LSU defensive line. Again, a unit that we're probably going to have to talk a little bit more about because we got some more questions to answer. But this offensive line, rock solid heading into 2024. The boys are fired up about it. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.